Percheron Therapeutics is developing immuno-oncology therapies that will be able to tackle some of the most difficult to treat cancers and rare diseases. Joining me now is CEO Dr. James Garner. Let's get an update on the company. Welcome, James. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So what is this lead program that you're running right now that is in clinical trial phase?
We're working with a drug called HMBD-002. Not the most exciting name out there, but the drug itself is really interesting. We're trying to turn the body's immune system on to fight the cancer. So instead of older drugs like chemotherapy, which is very poisonous to both the patient and the tumor, our drug is all about enabling the body's own immune system to fight the cancer. It's a relatively new approach, but showing huge promise with some other therapies.
Okay, so this lead candidate, so HMBD-002, will you ever rename it?
We're working on that.
Okay. I understand this is a new asset for the company. There was some sort of a strategic pivot last year. Can you flesh that out?
Yeah, we went through a complete reinvention last year. So our company was previously working in a rare childhood genetic disease. And unfortunately, the drug we were working on didn't work. It's an occupational hazard of biotech companies. It just reflects the risk of what we do. So last year, we were obliged to completely reinvent the company. We've become a cancer company. We brought this drug in from another company. I like to see this as being a silver lining to the cloud, because it's given us the chance to really think about how do we build an exciting business from the ground up? How do we start from a blank sheet of paper and build a really, really compelling biotech company? So that's what we're trying to do now with Percheron.
Yeah, okay. So we all want biotechs to succeed because they're solving problems that, people need to deal with, and we hope we never do ourselves. So what makes this program genuinely differentiated? Because we do hear about immuno-oncology in the biotech space here in Australia. So what's different?
Well, we're targeting a new part of the immune system. So other drugs that target the immune system have been really successful. They add up to over $40 billion a year in annual sales. But most of them target a particular part of the immune system, which, and apologies for the science here, but it's called PD-1. We're targeting something called VISTA, which is a newly discovered part of the immune system. And in the lab, it looks like a very, very important part of how the cancer grows and establishes itself. We know that when we suppress it in animal models and things like that, it has a really, really potent effect on the cancer. So we think this is a really exciting new frontier in terms of using the immune system to fight cancer in terms of immuno-oncology.
So you've highlighted that clinical trial number 1, phase 1, has already happened. So where are you in that whole spectrum?
We're just in that slightly awkward hiatus now between phase 1 and phase 2. So at the end of last year, we shared phase 1 human trial data. To cut a long story short, the drug looked great. It's exceptionally safe and well tolerated, which is really important for cancer drugs. But we also saw some really good evidence that it seems to be working for some of the patients. So we're now planning to take it into phase 2 human trials. That's where we're really looking for efficacy data. That's where we want to answer the question, does the drug work? We're going to be doing that in the second half of 2026. So right now, we're in the preparatory stage of that. We're working with clinicians and researchers and advisors to really nail down the detail of what that trial should look like. But the rubber hits the road in the second half.
Yeah, okay, so a lot to look forward to. But what's the growth strategy, generally speaking, for this newly reinvented company over the next, say, 12 to 18 months?
I think getting our drug back into human trials is the most important thing. But the great thing about Vista and the great thing about our drug is that it has potential uses in a whole range of different cancers. So we'll start small. We'll pick one particular tumor type, and we're just finalizing that decision over the next month or two. But then we have the ability to take it out into a range of different cancer types: breast cancer, lung cancer, esophageal cancer, all sorts of different tumor types. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to really have an impact for quite a broad range of cancer patients with this drug.
Okay, it's exciting, but we're going to assume that you have clinical success. So we know we go phase 2, then phase 3, then you get, the regulatory tick of approval in your markets. What does the pathway look like for commercialization if we assume everything goes right?
We probably don't have much of an ambition to become a commercial pharmaceutical company. And that may sound a really strange thing to say for a listed company. We don't plan to make regular revenue and all the things that companies normally do. But companies like ours most often partner with larger companies to commercialize their drugs. And that's going to be our strategy too. I think once we have the data in hand to really show it works, I think we become a really attractive partner or even potentially an acquisition target for a larger pharmaceutical company. And we're really trying to engineer that situation.
And do you do that by committing to this lead candidate, or do you also look to diversify the business beyond that one, product, really?
Right now, we feel that we've got our hands full with this one drug. I think there's so much opportunity buried within it that it's enough to keep us busy. And I think as a small company, sometimes it behooves you to do one thing well rather than try and spread yourself too thin. Long term, I'd love to see the company become something broader and to diversify itself. But I think we probably have to walk before we can run. So we'll be working on that.
And I suppose the share price is not completely relevant at this early stage. As you've said, you're pre-revenue, but the cash position, the balance sheet is always very important for these biotechs. And that's not meaning that you never have to raise capital again, because clearly that is part of the process when you invest in biotechs. We're all aware of that as investors. But what's the sort of cash position right now?
We closed 31st of December 2025 with about $4.5 million at the bank. And to put that in context, we spend very, very little on running the business. We're incredibly lean as a business. So the bulk of that money can be devoted to our R&D efforts. Now, and we also benefit extensively from the federal government's R&D tax rebate scheme. So we get up to 43.5 cents in the dollar back on the R&D money we spend. So what that means is that we have the ability to do quite a bit with the resources we have. And one of the things we've done is to design a program that is very, very slimline, very modular, very focused, instead of the big, broad way that a big pharma company would develop a drug like this. We've really taken a very, very laser-like focus to it. And so I think we can do a lot with the resources we have. We see a little bit where the data takes us, but right now we've got a little bit of money in the bank, and that's good.
Got it. So when it comes to short-term news flow, we'll be waiting to hear some activity around that second clinical trial in the latter half of the year.
Absolutely. I think that's the big ticket item for investors. It's really biotech companies getting into human trials is really what gets investors excited. So I think we'll be sharing with the market as we get closer and closer to that, and then hopefully recruiting patients in the second half.